as board of supervisors when we have had situations like that. What we've done is each rank individually and then come to the meeting and it's really amazing, 90% of the time we agree.
Now, I would assume that we're gonna have a matrix, piece of paper with all these, whatever the criteria may be. And we'll have this, and then we'll have 1 to 5, so we'll fill out this matrix, and I'll come with this matrix filled out with my homework.
But this is what she's trying to do here, is to make sure that there's not any ambiguity. She's trying to put it
I
down.
just wanna know where.
Yeah, but that is how it would go.
Yeah, and then there'd be a score on project X of 10. This is the way I would score it.
Well, I think that she's trying to limit that to where that is how it scores, period.
Boy, she's an evil person.
Well, no, I commend her for that.
Just
but
for the record. Yeah.
No, I commend her
It's
for that.
not really she. She's
knows what she's doing, that's why you're paying her the money you're
Yeah,
paying her.
exactly. It's not an arbitrary.
Yeah.
Irwin
It's not
regions
us,
do
it's,
it.
it's not really us, it's her.
So there are some Irwin regions that do it on a percentage basis, but pretty much the criteria here are designed to make sure that the projects fit into the Prop 84 stuff. So it's up to the management group how you want to do the scoring, and it doesn't have to be this way. This is how a number of regions have done it, and it's a place to start the discussion, which is great.
Have they run into crisis through their execution of the process?
I'm sorry, but
The others, have they had crisis going through, obviously it's a
usually-
proven record now.
yeah, I mean, it takes them a few months to go through this process. The management group wrangles with it, and then it goes to the stakeholders for input, and then it comes back, and it takes a while.
And the state has to buy off.
Yeah, that's exactly the big thing.
But we want to come up with a suite of projects that are prioritized, that are attractive, and for future grant opportunities.
Right.
And that's what we want, but they have to be projects that are relevant to the region.
Well, and I think like with these, the number one, relevance to the plan objectives, resource management strategies, statewide priorities. You're not going to get state funding if you don't meet one of their priorities. So those are no-brainers, but even shovel-ready, and I heard what Terry was saying about some people have things that are shovel-ready. But if you remember back to the glory days of ARA, one of the really frustrating things for small rural counties was that we don't have the money to do the engineering and CEQA and everything else to have a shovel-ready project. So consequently, we could never qualify any of our projects for some of that money. Because we needed the planning money up in advance to even begin to get shovel-ready. So I think we could easily have an organization come forward with a project that we all think is extremely important and, should be funded, and yet it would not even be off the drawing board.
2 years of CEQA, sorry.
Exactly, because it's an organization that's never had the funding to fund this fabulous project, so.
You're saying we should take that out?
I'm saying I think so. Because it's not like we have money right now to give people. So it's more like having to try to assist everybody to reach the point where they can qualify for some kind of funding. But anyway, I'm thinking along with Bill that although we're not required to approve this, I think maybe we need to go home and think about it a little bit more individually.
Well, and UMA's got a pretty good consensus from the board now where our concerns are, and that'll give you a little more opportunity to look around.
Well, but before I go home and do the homework, I gotta understand the assignment.
You do all our work for us and bring it back and do the last lesson.
Oh, pretty good. You got somebody else to do my homework? Right? Yeah. I do this a lot, and I'm not very many boards because they kick me out of What I'm thinking is this. I gotta have a little bit more, I gotta know where I'm headed before I pack my luggage. So what the point is, are we screening this for the state? Are we a screening agency for somebody else that's gonna judge what we screen?
No, we're screening this for ourselves, but we're emphasizing.
Well, in effect, you are if somebody else is granting.
Yeah, well, it's gotta meet their state's
It has to be the state
minimum
criteria.
requirements. This whole process does. That's where we're all headed.
But does the state get to say yes or no, or
Yes.
do we say yes?
They say yes or no.
The state says yes or no ultimately with the funding of the grant.
With the,
And the
that's where
project.
they have the ultimate say. I mean, it's the region's priorities that are being put into the plan. But those projects that are included have to meet the minimum state requirements, and we demonstrate that in the plan by including all of the applications that we received as an appendix to the plan. And then, but the ultimate approval comes, or state buy-in happens at the grant funding level, which happens after the plan is adopted.
Which means you're gonna have a perfect project and get no grant,
Right, exactly,
because there's a whole lot of
You
those.
could blow the writing of the grant and get no grants.
exactly, yeah.
Well, but it's incumbent upon us to do the best we
Oh,
possibly
no,
can.
I'm not,
to make sure
but that was a
those things don't
misinterpretation of what I was saying. You could have two grants. I mean, you can do a beautiful grant, right up, an excellent project, only there's 12 of them and there's five projects worth of money that gets allocated, is my point.
happen. Well, sure.
So then you just drop into the next line.
So we're, when we put this in, the end product's gonna look like there's a bunch of grants on there in the appendix. Because we have to put them in there.
Applications.
Applications. Okay, and those applications, state will say yes, are those particular automatically funded?
This
That's
is
the
an
big-
initial process for inclusion in the plan. The grant funding, you have to submit a formal grant application for each project that is put into the, so the plan is adopted with these projects in it. And then the state periodically releases grant solicitations relevant to the IRWM funding.
Okay.
And then
I'm following.
And then all of
so
the
far.
regions, so each region, the management group would decide which of their projects should go forward.
That were in our plan.
They were in the plan.
Okay,
They have to
okay.
be in the plan. And then those projects would be, go through a formal application process, which is more extensive than what is here.
They would still competing with other projects.
And
And
those
then
projects-
From other IRW.
And just keep going round after round until hopefully.
But there
you're
has to be in the
something.
plan to even be considered.
Right.
And each region
Yes.
is assigned a certain chunk of the money.
Money.
And so you're, not each region, each hydrologic region,
Right.
Yeah,
of
I
which
see
we are
that.
the mountain
Yeah.
counties. So-
So in Russell's example of a government employee, there's usually some minimum set of standards like, education,
Yeah.
experience. And personnel departments screen
screen
those
those.
out, and then the agency wanting employment gets a list. Sometimes in those interviews, there's some further kind of ranking that you come up with. But ultimately, that decision, frankly, on the employment side is the best fit for the organization. You have that opportunity, especially in California, because once you hire them and they pass probation, they could be around for an awful long time.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
however,
I've used that for, it's called tenure, I've used that for my
Yeah.
whole
But
career.
the element that's missing there, Randy, is that when you're interviewing somebody and you're on the interview panel and you're ranking them, that's confidential.
Right.
Well, in our process, and that's what everybody's concern is, that ranking is not confidential. So as Michael just pointed out, say he had submitted a project for some organization and he meets all the criteria and is at the top of the ranking,
And get zero votes.
that's it. There is no way that you're gonna get away with pulling that.
Well, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just
No,
trying
I
to
don't mean you, I mean that.
for the
Yeah, and
discussion
I-
purposes, kind of clarify that process that Russell kind of started with it to say, how do we kind of get that initial screening out and how do we
Yeah.
deal with it
You
beyond
got it, you got it. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think we need to think about that as initial screening, because are we penalized for having, are we only allowed 30 projects? Can we put 3,000 in? Making a stupid number. So what I'm saying is, let's look at it the other way around. Why wouldn't we put a project in?
Well, it's got nothing to do with.
It's not a matter where it's entered, it's where it's.
How you order it.
Categorize it.
Well, yeah, but are they ranked in our project? When
Yes,
we
they
put
have
our
to be.
applications, they have to be ranked?
Yes,
Required to
That's what this is all
that's the
about.
whole
Yeah.
problem here.
We're required to prioritize.
Otherwise, it would be easy.
Hey, I'm trying to write this damn thing up my way, so I can do it the
You
easy.
put them all in a hat, close your eyes and pull one.
Yeah.
Okay,
All things being equal.
so we're required to do that.
Yes.
So then, if there's, so we don't necessarily have to not include it, we can include everybody that puts their application in.
Yes.
That
That meets
it
As
the
long as it meets the
It's
requirements.
probably a wise thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Then
the
you
problem,
pick.
yeah, and then the problem would come in, then we would pick after we get the grant.
Ironically.
Or after,
but
or
we have
after
to
the
rank
grant solicitation goes out, so we know what criteria
What
that
they're looking
specific
for.
grant is looking for.
Now, you know why I'm asking all these questions, I'm not interrogating you, this is not a cross-examination.
Okay.
Michael Jackson will get you after I'm done. That's not the point. The point is, I want to get it clear in my mind what actually do we need to do. So hopefully we can make a good decision. That's the whole point. That's what the point of the meeting is. You send me home with homework. I gotta have this conversation now so I'm on the right track to do that. And there are certain principles that we want to do, and that's where I'm headed. If fairness is number one, and then we want to include as many people, then see, we have guidelines to work with, and then I believe that we can come up with a solution. That some of these.
Yeah, but then you got fairness and appropriate and winning.
Yes.
Oh, my God. So another,
Yeah, I was just gonna, I'm not trying, I'm asking these questions so that you can think about them and ignore me later. But for instance, if what you end up with is no quantification of these criteria, and somebody starts out by looking at the list of people that's sitting here, and the top 5 things that are ranked are something from the flood control district, something from the county, something from Feather River, Sierra Valley, and Sierra Valley groundwater. I think you've got a problem, unless you can show that those scored higher. Not your opinions,
No,
because
that's
that's
why I
who the
wanna-
reviewers are.
That's exactly why I want to get this right before
Yeah,
I go.
no,
That's my,
I mean,
that's my
so
point.
I do think what Uma suggested
Yeah.
is a good way to go.
I agree with that.
Nobody's
disagreeing with that.
Well, what did she suggest?
Oh, here it is.
Then you use the quantification, the way it's in the statute and the state criteria, which is.
I'll bring it up, Waxy.
I no longer handle
No,
Iowa.
it just like, I mean, it would be like, for instance, number 1, instead of for every objective it meets, it just has to meet one objective. So that takes
And it gets
the,
the point.
it gets the point, period. Instead of every objective you can figure out how to make it fit in the box, you get a point for. You just get a point for meeting the objective.
However, Uma doesn't like that, so
that's
let's
a
hear what
minimum
she says.
requirement, so I would just suggest striking it, because it's a minimum requirement for a
To meet
project
it.
to be included to address at least one objective.
Right.
Another option would be to categorize. So there's that category, if you look at those categories, if you look at the projects, the forms, the solicitation forms, and it's water supply, and there's 4 categories there, or 5.
Then that's an excellent point.
And then you could prioritize maybe by category, which it plays into as grant solicitation comes up, they're usually focused on a certain category of
So
things.
this makes it broader.
It's another
Yeah, yeah.
option.
There you go.
I
That
like
was
the
the one I was
category.
just gonna ask. And the market in the granting environment is gonna shift on us in 2 years anyway.
It shifts about every 6 months.
This is
Shift
why I
with
said,
whoever's
now
on
that
the
she knows
board.
what we're talking about, you let her go home and figure it out.
Yeah. Now that we've expressed our concerns to
Yeah.
you, my dear,
So,
would you please go figure it out for us?
Joe?
One suggestion, just hearing some of the discussion is, let's say there's 10, or 2 already maybe getting thrown out. So if there's 10 of them, I think all of them now add up to 3 points, right? I mean, it sounds like,
Yeah,
it looks like anyway. But I've heard, some desire to like weight others more heavily than others. So if you can assign a weighting factor to each of those 10, that might get at some of what you're looking for. Like if you want to make community benefits in the end be 20% of your score, you say that as your rubric. You say, yeah, we're gonna give 3 points to climate change, but that in the end is only 2% of our concern, or whatever, I don't know, I mean, I'm just throwing, these are not suggested numbers. But I mean, it sounds like that's kind of what you wanted to do, is you wanna weight these different factors.
Yeah,
So that might be
and
something.
you get to weight them because that's who you are,
Right, exactly.
right? I mean, it's not how I would weight them or how
No, but yeah,
somebody else would weight them.
Why didn't you speak up?
But the
I'm
numbers
just
need to
advisory.
be.
are important. I mean,
No, you're right.
the organizations that, well, first of all, there's no environmental organization here.
That's because that's who we are, Michael, you just said so.
No,
No, we've
I
tried
get
to
that.
be very open.
But if there's a way, I mean, what's going on in the back of my head is, I could go back and tell people, okay, the reason the weighting was that every single person on the list of the management group, their proposal they were really good proposals. And they beat everything else.
Yeah, well,
No,
that's,
they wouldn't believe me.
I know, that's what I wanted to be clear.
So find a way to make it clear.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I agree.
now, on the other hand, Trina could suggest to the state of California any proposal, and she's gonna win.
Good for Trina.
Right, right. And so it's not only, you have to have something to buttress your argument,
I concur
and it's
completely.
got to look equal.
That's what I've been
So, when
saying.
do you issue
That's
vision
what our,
principles
that's
down
what
to
our
that
fourth meeting, we've
categorization?
been meeting and discussing
Water
this.
issue.
We've
Okay, I'm
adopted,
sorry.
we've
And
adopted
then
the resource management strategy, we've adopted goals and objectives. I think we've gone way out of our way to accomplish
Yeah.
what you described it.
We just have to get there with this piece.
And we're gonna adopt the criteria.
Okay.
I particularly like Joe's notion
Mhm.
of weighting something other than others, but it's not gonna be 100% arbitrary. We're not just gonna say here. it's a-
We like you or we don't like
Because
you.
we know what'll happen when that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, we're not
Or you
foolish.
didn't comb your
It
hair
happens,
right
that's
that
what they
day or
want.
something.
Well, I noticed that it's 12 minutes past drinking time on Friday night, so.
And
Thank you
that-
for
and that-
listening.
So
I'll
can
get out
I,
of here.
can I ask?
And that, but that does bring me to something that, we're gonna close this meeting at 4:30. So we need to kind of start winding up of what is
Thanks, Michael.
it,
Thanks.
what is it we want to do with this? Do we wanna, like I said, take it home, think about it a little bit more? We can maybe talk to
Well,
people.
could we do one thing, and there's 14 of these.
Yeah,
If we knock some out, or we keep some, I mean, maybe that'll narrow the
make
field,
it easier.
make it easier, so that, I mean,
All the info you put you.
Okay, talk fast, Carl.
Well, I got a quick question for Uma. Did you put this scoring criteria together yourself, or is this kind of based on what the other regions?
It's based on what the other regions have put together.
So we need to keep that in mind, because this is what's going to be used in the competition when you submit
No,
that you've met.
No.
that's just a selection of the project.
Yeah, we just,
Yeah, it's really
we're our
up to-
own people.
No, but it will be, because when you consider what information you're supplying, what you're ranking on, everybody's going to be doing it kind of like on the same basis, so it will be considered.
No,
Not
'cause of-
formally as part of the process, but as an informal.
We have
Well,
a
it could be related.
state certified compliant IRWM that meets those requirements. The grant that follows in your prioritization, they're not gonna go in and go, well, we don't like the way you prioritize the projects in your plan. If the state agrees to the plan, that's not gonna have much effect.
Well, that's not what I'm implying. I'm implying that because of the process, this is all going to be,
I'm not sure what you're implying.
As long as the project meets the projects included meet the state minimum criteria, then how it's ranked within the region, it doesn't,
Moot.
it doesn't matter.
well,
as
I
far as
understand that,
within
I
the
understand.
region.
What I'm saying indirectly though, if all the other regions are using the same kind of criteria to evaluate their project,
There's variety. I mean, some
I
of
was
the
gonna,
percentage.
she didn't say all the other regions, she just said this came from other regions.
This-
Okay, so,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes, go.
What I like, this is a suggestion, I want everybody
to get a bind, that you would prepare a matrix for us to use as a matrix of score of a hypothetical project, period. And I think that would begin to help us get in, something we're gonna use to score with the tool. Then on the top of that, you can do, a couple different ways. You can have the 3 areas that we perhaps need to deal with in the matrix. You can list all these, let's say one side, and then you can put the either point values that we would put. One would be a 10, one would be a 20, one would be a 30. And how would we get, so I think you understand, there's a couple ways you can do this. Are you follow what I'm saying?
I'm not really sure how.
I can see in your face.
Yeah.
But I'm
So
thinking,
the rest of us either.
Yeah.
No, what it would do is, it looks something like this. It'd be
Like a scoring sheet?
yes. And it's kind of like, I call it matrix, but it'd be a scoring sheet, something like this. It would have criteria on one side and boxes filled out. And so that way, at the end, you would add up and have it's a scoring sheet.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Teachers call it a rubric.
Look at it, you see this?
Yeah,
That's kind of good.
Yeah, that's kinda like it.
Um,
and then what would happen is, then it would help us start to either we want to weight certain of these 10 that we throw 15 of them out, or I don't care what the number is. But we could weight them differently. One's worth a 10, one was 20, one was 30. We can decide what those weights are gonna be, and then we can decide what those points would be. In essence, then, okay, I give this project, it was worth 20, I'll give it a 15. And then those would be added up. I'm just saying, if you went for,
See, what you're
What the
doing,
end-
you're opposite of what Joe's talking about. Joe's talking about you weight the scoring, so if it meets that X in that box, it's
Because-
worth 20% more. It takes all the
uh,
ambiguity out of it, so it's not your personal views of anything. It's- If it meets this, you can say that if it's a benefit to the public utilities, it's 20%
no, let's go
more.
a different direction.
Yeah, that's exactly opposite of what you were talking about.
Yes.
And it takes us out of it, like Michael said, it makes it a box checking thing as opposed to a personal,
But we
Okay,
still have
so-
to establish.
but we gotta establish what each box is worth. or
But
whatever
for right
worth.
now, what Amos asked us to do is to look at 1 through
Yep.
11
Yes.
and see, or 14, and see if we want to take out, just say we don't even want to rent partners. Yeah, partners is gone.
Okay, number 6 is that.
Okay, so we're
I think,
shovel ready, how do you feel about that?
I don't think that's.
Well, it's moot and it's non-competitive at that point.
Shovel ready means that some organization that doesn't have the wherewithal to
Is
make a
out of the
project
mix.
is out of the mix. I would like to not even consider that unless it comes down to a tie between 2 projects.
Right,
That's
okay,
it.
so we cross,
Rather than flip a coin, that would be about the last thing you.
Yeah,
So
no,
shovel
it
ready-
just removes competition.
Because
shovel
I
ready
would like to see that
was gone.
organizations that don't have resources have a fair chance to
me
compete.
too. So shovel ready's gone, partners is gone, matching funds,
Yeah, and again, that
we might want to just leave that in to have you come up with a suggestion on that one.
way down, matching funds again doesn't
I
really
wouldn't
speak to
give
the
it much
value of the
weight.
project.
No, but I think it
No, but
weights
the
it,
state
the
criteria
state
usually
criteria.
requires.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
The
gives a
state
weight.
likes it.
I think community benefits should be should be number 4, right after, the top 3 are obviously, you've got them right. The
Yeah.
IRWIM objectives, the resource management strategies, and the statewide priorities should be 1, 2, 3, and then to me, about the 4th priority for me would be community benefit. And when I say community, I don't just mean the community where people live, but the ranching community or the forestry, the different communities of interest in our watershed, whatever that community happens to be.
We can change that word too, we can say stakeholders, benefits, or something.
Yeah, community, just understanding that community means more than just the community of Sierraville.
But the 2 massive buzzwords today are climate change and drought preparedness too.
Yeah.
So they love to see
And
that.
that's what they want.
It's required.
Wait a minute, let's not leave community yet. So do you understand where I'm going with this community? A community of interest, I guess. Not just a geographical community, but a community of common interest.
Right. The more people it serves, the.
Yeah, whether regardless of what background or livelihood they have, anything that would benefit a ranching.
Are you talking about 11, or what are you talking about?
11.
11.
And so ranching is a community.
Okay, so let's
Agriculture.
don't, we
Let's call it
already,
a village.
We're skipping around in the clock.
I'm sorry.
Okay, number 7, climate change, that stays in because that's what the state wants. We're out the same way.
Can you
Impact,
change the point system on it?
Yeah,
well,
we can
that's what we're
reduce-
asking
That's
We're
for.
gonna be coming up with something else, but I'm gonna ask you guys to give us some input. by
Okay,
email
well,
after
let
the-
us get through what we're doing. Don't get us off track. Okay, impact if not funded, is that meaningful? No, let's take it out.
I disagree. Excuse me. If you have a situation where a municipality is not meeting its discharge requirements or its drinking water requirements, they face fines of up to $10,000 to $50,000 a day for being out of compliance with their permits. To me, that should weigh pretty heavy, especially for like a DAC. I think that it should weigh
Okay.
heavy because
I have
we
no
are in
problem.
that situation.
Okay.
in this county.
What's selling? You won.
I guess while we're on that, the only thing I would add real quickly is, you're right, the impact is not funded.
You guys just won't behave, I swear.
I don't understand why threatened and endangered species is under impacts if not funded at the same level that public health is.
Yeah, see, I think that should
To
not
me,
be.
public health is far more important than endangered species. I mean,
Well, but then as somebody pointed out earlier on another subject, there are many people that would pack this room to disagree with you.
I'm sure. But I just,
Yeah.
to me, public health.
But impact if not funded stays in. We'll work it.
Yeah, I'm trying, but these turkeys won't behave. Okay, so we got, Frank 1 on 9, it stays in. We're on number 10, what about preliminary engineering? That's like shovel ready. I think that needs to go. Community benefits, we already heard Bill, and I agree with him on that one. Okay, so disadvantaged community, that gets into the DAP and
Absolutely,
tribal.
that's it.
Number of projects submitted per proponent,
This one is usually, there's usually only one leveling criteria, and it's just an attempt to address what you guys have been talking about today. Doing the weighted factor might be an option, a different way of doing it, instead of doing one of these leveling factors, or you could do both, you know, it's just up to you guys.
So these might both fall out.
It might, or just one of them, or, yeah.
what do you think? Anybody quick? Number of projects submitted, is that a criteria we might want to use for leveling?
I don't know that that's.
I don't think it's meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, what I don't get is, when you're talking member of private, what if they're all really, really good?
I guess the intent is if a district has, say a district has plenty of staff and they can put
Yeah,
out
they can
20
pump it out.
projects, you know,
Well, they might overwhelm.
right.
But they still might not score. I mean, if they've scored to the top because they're really great.
Well, the concern is just outbalancing. You know, so,
Yeah, she's
well,
talking about balance.
Life isn't fair.
Oh, trust me, I think about every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's leave that in for now. And project cost, personally, I don't think that should be a criteria, because if we had
Oh, yeah.
one big giant
Right.
grant and one good project, fine. Or 10 little ones that fit in there. So project cost was out, so there you have it.
So Randy
What's your
had a
question, Randy?
Well, a lot of great discussion. It's really, as I can tell, it's really the first time we really, as a group, we're able to dig into this and discuss it. I would encourage some feedback to Lima, either through, think about it. If you would like, Lima could probably give you the file on this. You can go in and red mark it or mark
Would
it
be
up.
excellent tracking.
Joe, I think some more elaboration on what you were talking, because you seem to get some agreement from the group on assigning some percentages. Trina, anything you can think of? I would hope that in between now and when you actually adopt this, we get some
No,
input.
I think Uma's got a good snapshot now, and she's done wonderfully up to this point. She'll figure it out.
I also like, probably we should vent whatever ideas we come up with the chair and the vice chair, so that we're not traveling down a path that, or if you want, a subcommittee of the whole group, so that we're not spending a lot of time traveling down a path and not getting there, and that's what we.
Well, I mean, we're all in the same boat here, we just don't wanna we don't wanna be the messenger that gets assassinated. That's the problem.
Well, what concerns me is that it sounds like computers will do this. So we don't have to do anything. See, that's the problem is,
That's where you, that's my
where
problem.
I'm coming from is that,
Where's the-
you're gonna give me my opinion, I'll give it to you. But see, you're not asking for my opinion, you're asking for a machine.
We're asking for
that
your
does-
opinion at this point, not
Yeah,
after the
that's my
fact.
point, after the fact, so we're out of it.
After the fact. If we do it right now, we're in good shape.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that that's clear.
So
There goes
please,
some
input to move on.
Yeah, we get the message. Okay, item 8, next meeting.
I did have one comment, just, to Joe's, like, if we do put any new definitions or wording in as far as weighting or anything like that, just that they be clearly defined and understood by the group.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Because it'll be coming back to the group to be vetted in.
Send it to the file.
Okay, so next meeting,
So it'll be in May, is our next, is it every other month?
do you have a date in mind?
So every,
Well, we,
this is supposed to be what, 4 times a week? 6.
every other month, so I have May 29th, based on the last Friday of the month, which is what we did this time.
That work
When's the
for
holiday?
everybody?
When's the holiday?
It's the week before, the weekend before.
The 25th?
Memorial Day's the 25th.
I'm pretty open between, after May 15th to next January, except for June.
Congratulations.
We were scheduling part of the Run My degree program, graduating with me.
Right.
I don't start the grad program until next January.
Okay, let's
What
figure
time?
on the 29th. Do you want it 1 o'clock still, or?
And that still fits into your schedule that we were discussing. When this is due, we have to do this meeting. It's not gonna hang it up. We don't need decisions before that time.
We will need feedback on the selection criteria, but we can do that by email.
Okay, sure.
And
Okay.
then once we get that feedback, if we just ship it out to the work groups and the stakeholders for comments, then I think we can stay on track.
Okay, so May 29th at 1 o'clock here at planning.
Same all copy.
Oh, and then consent.
Wrote it on my calendar. I was ready to come to yesterday.
Oh,
Oh.
that would have been,
Rest.
would have been lovely.
Yeah, we're gonna quiet meeting.
Okay, consent, last item, consent agenda. We need to approve the meeting minutes from January 28th. Do I hear a motion already? I got a first and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Yes, Don.